Every day in the USA, people find themselves in court.
All right, so now our first case is 26260. That is Julie Conklin versus Victoria Anderson. Do I have someone here on behalf of the plaintiff, Julie Conklin?
Me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you Ms. Conklin?
Yes, I am.
Good afternoon. Do I have someone here on behalf of the defendant, Victoria Anderson?
That would be me, Becky Taboka.
Are you Victoria Anderson?
No, I'm the authorized agent for her. I don't know if we need to fill
you're
out
appearing on
paperwork.
her behalf. All right,
Yes,
good
ma'am.
afternoon, Mr. Volka. All right, Ms. Conklin, why is this eviction sought?
For non-payment of rent
All right, is there a
and
written
unauthorized animals.
Ms.
Pardon?
Conklin, is there a written lease between the parties?
There is.
And under the lease, how much is the
Hello.
It's
Wait, Ms.
$360 a
Conklin,
month.
one moment. Yes, I heard someone begin speaking. Who is that? All right, Ms. Conklin, thank you for that. Tell me, I'm sorry, how much is the monthly rent?
It's $360 a month.
350 or 60?
60.
360.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
All right.
Your Honor.
Is any portion of that subsidized?
No.
What months of rent are unpaid?
January and February.
Was rent due for March?
It was
When is rent due?
on the 1st.
Right. Is your property under the Federal CARES Act?
No, Your Honor.
All right. What day did you provide the notice to vacate to the defendant?
January 7th.
Had the defendant previously been late on the rent before January?
No.
So January was the first time she was late with the rent?
Well, yes, but her lease began in December, so she'd only been here a month when she stopped paying.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bolka.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Ms. Conklin says that the defendant is behind on the rent. So my first question is it correct that the monthly rent is $360?
The plaintiff does not own the property to evict anyone.
Does the plaintiff have a lease with the defendant that you're representing?
No, there is no lease.
Ms. Conklin, do you have a written lease?
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you provide a copy of that to the court?
I have not, but I have a copy of it I can provide.
All right, Mr. Bolka, assuming there's no written lease, is it correct that your person you're representing is currently residing in property?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and how did they come to have access to that property?
Julie let them in. I mean, and the property is not hers. The person
Ms.
that owns the property passed away,
That
and it's in probate.
That may not be a defense, though. If Ms. Conklin is who leased it to the defendant, Ms. Conklin is her landlord. So if what you're saying is that the reason your person you're representing got access to it is through Ms. Conklin, then yeah, that would make Ms. Conklin the landlord. Ms. Conklin says that she has a written lease. You're saying she does not. Do you know
She
if the
doesn't.
person you're
There was
representing?
never a written lease.
That's fine, Mr. Volka. A written lease isn't required. Do you know if the person you're representing agreed to pay rent to Ms. Conklin?
She did not.
What was the agreement for why she got to live there?
Because she could live there. I mean, there was no real agreement. It was just, they talked about it and she said she could move her trailer in.
Well, then, Ms. Tobolka, here's the situation. If there's no lease and no agreement to pay rent, then Ms. Anderson is just a guest and she can be told to leave with 24 hours notice. If she has a
Okay.
lease, then she is a tenant and she might have some rights today. So I want you to decide whether or not you're representing this person correctly. Is there a lease and she's supposed to pay rent, or is she a guest because she just got to move her stuff in?
Well,
It's a difference.
maybe they had
Is
a written,
she a tenant
maybe they had
or
an
is she a
oral
guest?
agreement.
If she had
Okay,
an oral agreement, then she is a tenant, and we'll get
Yes,
into
ma'am.
the details of that lease.
Okay, let's do that.
Do you know personally what the information is?
It was really scattered. There's not really a formal thing done here. That's my concern.
Ms. Tabolka, are you a party to this oral agreement of any type?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm not.
How do you have personal knowledge then of an oral agreement if you were not a party to it?
I only have personal knowledge of what's going through the probate courts for the land, the property that's being rented out.
Okay. Probate is a completely separate thing from eviction.
I
It may
understand
very
that.
well be that the land is being probated. That is not a defense to whether or not Ms. Conklin has the right to make the defendant, Ms. Anderson, leave. If Ms. Anderson is there because Ms. Conklin gave her permission, then that's either a tenancy or a
Well,
guest.
and then who determines that Miss Conklin can give anybody permission to be a tenant there?
No one has to determine that. If Ms. Conklin had access, she can illegally let it out, and then Ms. Anderson would be a protected third-party purchaser for value, which we see a lot of,
And
unfortunately.
who allows access to that?
No one allows it. If Ms. Conklin was able to get access to it and gave it to Ms. Anderson, then Ms. Anderson's a tenant.
Okay. There's a lot of access issues here, but I guess that needs to be taken up in another court.
Okay. Ms. Conklin, did you find a copy of your written lease?
I do. Yes, I have a copy of the written lease. Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Can you submit that to me right now via email?
Yes, I can.
I'd like to see the written lease because Mr. Bolka says that there's
Okay.
no lease whatsoever. And if you're here about money, you're going to need to establish that, she owes it to you.
Right. Okay. Yes, yes, ma'am. Just take me just a second to do this. It's not, I printed it on my computer, but it's not, I have to scan it in with her signature.
Okay, that's fine. I'll also highlight for you, Ms. Conklin and Mr. Bolka both. When I reviewed the notice to vacate, it is an accurate notice to vacate because it does include a pay or vacate opportunity. So the notice that Ms. Tabolka provided did give Ms. Anderson an opportunity to cure the deficiency by bringing the rent current, in which case the eviction would have been voided. So I'll just say that I checked that. She did give the correct type of notice here. All right. Ms. Conklin, Mr. Bolka, why don't we give y'all a few minutes?
Miss Anderson was never served for this hearing. She was served for a hearing on the 12th. We just seen it when we looked it up. So that's why I'm attending for her on her behalf.
How did you find out about the hearing, Mr. Bolka?
By looking up the other case for Victoria Anderson, it's going to be the hearing on the 12th. And Julie has submitted three other cases for evictions there already, and she has another one against Victoria and another one against Robert Anderson coming up this month.
All right. We're going to take this on recall. Ms. Conklin, I'd like you to submit a copy of the lease to us. Mr. Bolka, if you'll stay with us, you can turn your camera off. That way you're not going to lose all your power on your phone. We're going to do the other cases. We're going to come back and revisit this one, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right. So it's just a simple part. It's a lease between parties. It is simply one page. Mr. Bolka, I'm sharing my screen. I don't know if you're able to still witness or to see what we're doing, but I am taking a look at it. So this appears to be a copy of a lease. It says lease agreement. Parties between this are Julie Conklin, gives an address, of Victoria Anderson, gives an address for the property, space to park a trailer. So this is about a lot rental.
It has no connections or anything, so it's really not
Y'all,
for that.
not
That doesn't.
relevant. It's
I
about
understand.
leasing space. This is a lease, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
At
Yes,
the end
ma'am.
of the lease, it's supposed to last a whole year. Bi-weekly rent of 180 is due on the 1st and the 15th. So the total for the month is going to be 360. And that's literally it. There's no other terms and conditions. All right. Lot rental for a trailer. No other conditions. The notice to vacate you gave her is insufficient on its face. Because you're renting land to her, you must give her a greater amount of time to move her trailer. And that is a different type of notice than is required for other types of residential leases. There is also a concern, and that Miss Anderson was not served by the constable. The address provided, no one was able to get to her at. And so, as Ms. Tabolka pointed out, the defendant literally has no idea that there's a hearing today.
Okay, that's not true, but yes, Okay.
Not illegal, Ms. Conklin. I understand that Ms. Tobolka is here because she found out, but legally, she has not been served as required by law by the constable, and I can see that. They sent it back, so we couldn't serve it. So, Ms. Conklin, today you're not meeting the burden of proof that you would need for an eviction. And specifically, I'll highlight that a 3-day notice would be insufficient for a failure to pay rental for the land if you're renting land to her for her trailer.
Okay.
All right. So, Ms. Conklin, today it's going to be a plaintiff take nothing, judgment for the defendant. I would say lack of service. You have the right to appeal that decision, though, Ms. Conklin. Okay. If you wanted to appeal, the appeal bond would be $250, just the minimum we can allow, and based on what the rent amount is at 180 each 2 weeks, I think that's reasonable for everyone.
Okay. Yes,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
Thank you both very, very much. Mr. Boko, you can let Ms. Anderson know that the case today was resolved in favor of the defendant for lack of service, but Ms. Conklin may very well begin the process again. Okay?
Yeah. Thank
All right. Very best of luck to everyone. Thank y'all.
you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All parties are excused. 26320, Julie Conklin versus Victoria Anderson. Do I have someone here on behalf of Julia Conklin?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here, Ms. Conklin. And is there someone here on behalf of Victoria Anderson? I see that we have a Victoria Anderson present in the courtroom. Ms. Anderson, if you can hear me, you'll need to press *6 if you're on a telephone. Good afternoon, Ms. Anderson. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Welcome to both of you then.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Conklin, why was this eviction filed?
Failure to pay rent. Excuse me. Failure to pay rent.
Okay.
The
How
lease
much is the
began
monthly
on
rent?
$350.
$350. Is there any subsidy on that by the government?
No, Your Honor.
All right. What months have been unpaid?
December, January, February, and March.
Were any partial payments made?
She paid $200 towards her power.
Okay, but not towards the rent.
Nothing towards the rent. No.
Okay. Is this a CARES Act property?
No, Your Honor.
When was notice to vacate provided?
January 7th.
All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Anderson. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Ms. Anderson, first, let me just ask a few questions to see if
Okay.
what I was told by Ms. Conklin is accurate. So Ms. Conklin said that the monthly rent is $350. Is that correct?
That is negative. I'm not, she told me all I had to do is, because I live in my own trailer, that I can help pay the electric bill and not worry about paying the rent. I didn't have no rent when I moved in there. That was the agreement we had with me and
Okay.
her.
Ms.
She-
Anderson? Ms.
yes.
Anderson, when did you move in?
I don't recall what date
You-
or what month I moved in. December, I guess,
Of what year?
of this year.
Okay, so in 2025 you moved in.
25, yeah.
Okay.
2025.
And Ms. Conklin, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Is there a written
Your
lease
Honor.
between you and Ms. Anderson?
Yes, Your Honor.
Was that written lease provided to the court when you filed the eviction?
No, you have a copy of it now, though, I do believe.
So you've submitted that to court. Okay, I see something here that says plaintiff lease. Let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen now, Ms. Anderson. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. This is the document that Ms. Conklin has sent in. She says this is a copy of the lease agreement between the parties that was signed in December. At the top, it is one page. It says lease agreement. This lease agreement is made between the parties, landlord Julie Conklin. There's a drive on Spicewood, tenant Victoria Anderson, property Scenic Drive, Spicewood, Texas, space of land to park a trailer. And then it started and it ended for 1 year. Rent was to be bi-weekly, $180. So I think this is probably bi-monthly, but you were supposed to pay $180 on the 15th and the 1st for a total amount of $360. And Ms. Conklin, is this your signature?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Anderson, do you recognize this document?
I do, but I never got a copy of it. And then that wasn't the agreement we had when I moved in.
Ms. Anderson, this is your signature, then this would be a valid copy of the lease.
Yeah,
right.
but she tricked me into signing that lease.
Ms. Anderson, you still signed it and you moved in, so the court is gonna have to find that it's valid and
I was already
enforceable.
moved in when I signed that lease. She tricked me into signing that lease.
It's still dated
She
December
told
14th,
me,
the date it
so
began.
we had a agreement that it was just gonna cover my butt if something happened. I didn't have to pay that amount.
Do
Because
you
the
have
house
that
is
in,
up.
Ms. Anderson, do you have that in writing?
No, I don't, but the house is up for foreclosure or whatever. And
All
so
right. Ms. Anderson, are you renting a home or are you renting land?
I'm just renting land.
Renting land.
But I
And
wasn't renting land. I was just renting the electricity on the land.
Ms.
She told me I
Anderson-
didn't have to pay the rent there on the
Ms.
land.
Anderson, the written document provided that you both signed is more supports the allegation by Ms. Conklin than your allegation that it does not, because this is a signed to stated document. So the court would take that as more likely true, that that is the agreement of the parties when you moved in.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Conklin, you said that no payment has occurred since you moved in. Is that right?
That's not
Yes,
correct.
Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Anderson, how much money have you paid toward the rent, not toward the utilities? Because she said you gave money toward the utilities. She acknowledged that, but I'm asking about toward this 360 of rent. Have you given her any money besides utility money?
$290 on the flooring of for my rent, paid on my rent.
You paid $290?
Yes.
When was that?
When we went to Lowe's to get the flooring for the house. I don't know the
That's not
date,
rent. Okay.
but that was supposed to be towards my rent, yes.
Ms. Anderson, are you parking anything on the land or are you just renting land?
I'm parking my trailer on there. But then she locks me out of the house where I can't use the facilities or anything like that. So I mean, I don't use nothing of her over there at the house. I mean,
Is your
she just
trailer still on the land?
yes, it is.
Okay, then that's what we're here about. We're about you moving your
Okay.
trailer off the land. All right. Ms. Conklin, how much notice did you give Ms. Anderson that she needed to move her trailer?
I gave her 5 days notice to pay rent. It was a 3-day notice, but it fell on the weekend, so I set it for Monday. It was 5 days total.
And Ms. Conklin, is
But
Ms. Anderson, is it a mobile home or is it like an RV that is wholly drivable away?
It's a little trailer.
It's a pull behind trailer.
It's a pull behind.
Yes, Your Honor. She does use the amenities in the house, though, Your Honor, as well.
She locked me out. I do not use them.
All
And I've
right.
asked for a copy of the lease agreement and I haven't gotten it.
All right. I calculate 135 for March. Judgment for plaintiff, $835. Either party can appeal. The appeal bond would be $350. Ms. Anderson, you absolutely have the right to appeal. When you checked in, did we get a good email address for for you?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson, when you checked, did we get a good email address from you?
Yes.
Okay, and how about Ms. Conklin? Did we get a good email address for you as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll email you both a copy of the order along with your information about appeal. And certainly, if y'all come to some other agreement in the next 5 days, Ms. Conklin, you can let us know that.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, all parties are excused. Thank you very much.
Ma'am,
Yes, Ms. Anderson.
she hasn't given me a 30-day notice to move out, to vacate. And I haven't got my rentals agreement or lease thing or nothing.
Or written receipts.
Or rent receipts or nothing from her.
Well, those would not be a defense to an eviction. A lack of a receipt for your lease is not going to be sufficient for an eviction. That may be a violation of the property code, but it's not a defense to non-payment.
But isn't a 30-day notice to vacate required?
Isn't a 30-day notice
Give you a
vacate
receipt for
required?
rent that's not paid.
I don't find that, ma'am. She did not renew your lease, and this isn't a CARES Act property. This is non-payment.
And she doesn't even own that property. Does that matter?
No, it does not. Because you rented from her, the authority is there. If she doesn't own the property, that raises questions about why you believe you could go in with her authority, but I'm going to let that alone. Parties can appeal.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Very best of luck to everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The constable missed me, the notice was slim. I dodged that eviction on a legalistic whim. Taboka stood tall, said no service today, and for one sweet moment I didn't have to pay. Then the next case came rolling around, my signature stuck on that spicewood ground. I cried I was tricked and I bought him some floors, but 835's kicking me out the doors. Yeah, keep your Lowe's receipts, honey. I'm in a trailer home stuck with no land and no money.